All right. Good morning, folks. Thank you for joining us. Sorry about the little delay, but we appreciate your patience and the time that you dedicate to coming to these webinars. As always, today we are going to continue our year-end webinar series. Today's topic is going to be Mastering Studio Designer. So this is going to be full of tips and tricks to level up your efficiency game and make financial management just flow a lot more easier. And with us today to help us find those tips and tricks and implement them is none other than Julia Nikishna. So Julia, as always, thank you for doing these with us and sharing all of that great knowledge that's in your brain.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind of you. I don't
uh,
know if I would go that far, but
So just to give you all new to these webinars, some background information on who we have presenting today. Julia has a bookkeeping and an accounting firm that offers support, including CFO services for large and small businesses. She specializes in unique and complex accounting needs for interior design firms and showrooms. And she offers comprehensive procurement services for designers and showrooms. I thought that was going to be much smoother, but I'm literally reading off of a slide and I can't even get through all of those words. But anyway, this is what Julia does on a daily basis. She is a trained professional and definitely one of our great consultant partners that we have to share with you all. Last house cleaning item for my portion before I hand it over to Julia. There is a Q&A session that we do towards the end of the content and also as we go along sometimes. But if you have any questions at any point during the webinar, click on the little box. I think it's a question mark box now in your toolbar for Zoom. Hit that box or that button. The window will pop up and you can enter in your question at any time, and we'll just go down the list towards the end and try to answer all of your questions. With that being said, Julia, I will go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can take it away.
perfect. Let's just make sure I share the right screen. It's always a fun game we play.
And you always seem to win, which is the funny thing. But
Uh,
we can see your.
we could see studio.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's always such a fun time really to join and just go through all that Studio has to offer. Longtime Studio user. I need a commercial, Anthony, because I do love it. And they don't make me say that, by the way. I mean, I very willingly choose to be an advocate.
You're not getting a check in the mail for that? Wow, I'll talk to somebody.
I know, right? Come on, phone a friend. Um, But today we're going to dive into tips and tricks. I'm going to try my hardest to keep it focused around financial tips and tricks, but really I think I'm going to start maybe more general and then narrow down to tips and tricks regarding the actual financial part of the software itself. As Anthony mentioned, wherever your Zoom toolbar is, you will have that Q&A box. We used to be in the chat box. Now we're in the Q&A box. So open up your Q&A. And if you have a question at the time, please just throw it in there. I do see them in real time. I do think it's a lot more helpful also to utilize to answer the questions while we're in a screen that it's pertaining to. So really fun time of the year. Thanksgiving's around the corner. We're closing out the year. There'll be a couple of close out the year webinars coming up in the next few weeks. But today, let's just dive into some of the basics. So whenever I'm doing training for either new clients or even clients that have been in the software for a long time, but maybe need just a refresher, I always start out with addresses. So if you go to projects and all addresses, if you notice, again, I'm an old time Studio user, Anthony, I must say that every webinar. So I go to all addresses because the top three options did not exist before. And so I actually just really preferred the all addresses view. I like to see everything comprehensively. And this is where I would toggle to say, okay, are we in a client, a project, or a vendor? Something that we talk a lot about in terms of end of the year, and we talked about it last week, is making sure that you're utilizing the super fun, let's go here, super fun add-on of images and attachments in the actual vendor ID. So this is a newer feature, I would say a couple years. We push it heavily. And so with all of our clients, whether again, they're new or old, we're encouraging everyone to go and utilize the images and attachment section for your vendors, because this is a great place to store W-9s. It also lives in codes. We talked about this again last week in terms of, does somebody need a 1099, yes or no? But because you can now link images and attachments to vendors, go into your media library and set up some files, it's thinking, but set up a file called W-9s, which we did, it'll fall to the bottom. You could also set up a folder called COIs for certificate of insurance. Certificate of insurances do, I think, get a little bit more clunkier because they're harder to manage. You may need a certificate of insurance from a laborer for every project that they're on, especially if you are in any type of strict building. So even though you could manage them here in images and attachments, and they could live on the actual vendor, when you're in codes, there's only one box for expiration dates for certificate of insurances. Anthony, I do think that's something we need to put on a list. It's not necessarily on my priority list, but I do think it comes up. It comes up for sure with anyone working in New York, as an example, in the high rises. You need a certificate, and then you're constantly looking to see, oh my gosh, did that certificate expire? Did it not? So I think something to just keep on a longer term list of can we add additional expiration dates to the vendor ID.
Absolutely. I can definitely bring that up the chain for sure.
Somebody asked actually a great question. Can we reorganize the library? So I think a good news, that's a great question, is you can now, you used to not be able to rename in the media library. So mine is thinking, I'm sure there's so much in this test database. You can now rename the folders. So I could go in and I could rename my folder here. So if you notice, and actually let's go down to W-9s as an example, right? So click into W-9s and I now have an edit pencil button. And so I could go in and rename this. So W-9, we'll call it W-9 test. Though it is not typing. Oh, sorry, it's just delayed. W-9's test. And look, I have a sofa in there. You can rename them, which is great. Can you reorganize and delete? You can absolutely delete. You may want to be careful though, right? So how are you linking what's in these folders to the items, as an example? So, and you also can't drag and drop in terms of like, can you take from this folder? Oh, maybe you can. Did I just successfully moved one file? Oh, Anthony, no way.
I think that's part of the one of the newest features. Just wait till the items refresh.
Yes, did you notice the test database had the items refresh a couple of weeks ago?
I did not.
Yes, I was in here and then I was like, oh my gosh, and then it went away. That is actually a really new feature. That is amazing. We get that request all the time. So Sharon, I think, just asked to say, how do we reorganize? And so you can now drag and drop. And so I really like the media library by client. It's a personal preference for sure. I'm not as big of a fan of it by vendor, but again, that's just my take on it. So you can now drag and drop and rename and then delete. So you would have to be in the images and attachment section and then organize it from here. Oh, Canadian clients W-9, also a great question. So a W-9, we'll just go to our handy Google. So a W-9 is a US form. It is a form that the IRS requires us in the US technically to request a W-9 from any vendor that we're paying. And so the next question of that is, well, why? So a W-9 allows us to see legal entity name, business address, and what type of entity structure they are. And from there, we are following IRS guidelines because a W-9 is used to report 1099 earnings. What are 1099 earnings? So 1099 earnings are dollars that we pay to another business. So it's business to business or business to individual. You do not need to issue 1099s personally. Like if you pay your painter as Susie Smith, you don't need to send your painter a 1099. But the W-9 gives you the information to send a 1099. And the 1099 is the IRS's way of verifying that businesses are reporting the right amount of income. So let's say you are where were we? ABC something, AA Custom Furniture. So AA Custom Furniture is required to receive a 1099. They're an I wonder what we have them in here as. Yes, they're an LLC. Here's their EIN. I know they're an LLC because I sent them a W-9. And so AA Custom Furniture is working with all these different companies. At the end of the year, all these different companies send a 1099 to the IRS and tell the IRS, oh, cumulatively, we've paid AA Custom Furniture $1 million. And when AA Custom Furniture goes to file their tax return, they tell the IRS, oh, IRS, we only made $900,000. We didn't make $1 million. That is the IRS's way of double checking that businesses are reporting the correct amount of income. Is it fail-proof? Is it foolproof? I would say no. And there are rules and regulations about, again, who receives a 1099. A couple of years ago, and I don't remember the year exactly, though I think it was post-COVID, the IRS suggested, and I believe it passed the House, but then maybe didn't pass the Senate, they wanted everyone to send a 1099 business to business, regardless of if they qualified or if they were paid over $600. And I believe they got a lot of pushback from small businesses, right? Because it's such a big undertaking in terms of our paperwork. But from an IRS standpoint, I mean, that would have been a great way to generate more money, because it just ensures that no matter who you're paying, you're then sending a 1099 to. So HST equivalent in Canada is equivalent to our sales tax, I believe, is a statement or a question from someone. Can you upload price sheets or product brochures to the vendor images? That's actually a great question. And the answer to that is yes, as long as the team knows to look for it there, and as long as obviously it's up to date. But remember, your images and attachments it's just a tool. So if everyone is taught to go into the vendor ID for all of that information, that's definitely great. And at that point, right, you would have that type of attachment, not in a client folder. It really would be in a vendor folder, or it would be in a folder called, pricing. So it was clear to everybody across the board. Someone else is asking about a COI, and is it provided by the vendor? So yes, because if you're working in a strict building and you're working with, let's say, a painter, that building is requiring you to provide a certificate of insurance before anyone even enters the building. So that is definitely a common occurrence in New York City, right? And the vendor, so let's say our painter, needs to have specific limits before they even can get inside. So how do you manage all of that documentation? Managing it in studio, I think, again, is a great first step. It really just depends on how many certificates and how many, where that vendor is working at. So if the vendor's only working for client Mr. and Mrs. Smith, this is great. You're going to just manage it right here, and you're going to upload it into images and attachments. But if they're working with multiple clients, right here, right, these two drop downs are just not enough information. Right, you need additional liability insurance expiration dates if you want this to really manage it. I would say, like, all around. But those are both, all of those have been really, really great questions. I'm telling you, this images and attachments, I say all the time that it's new, and I don't know how new it is, Anthony. I should probably really find that answer out, but I thought it was one of the best things that it was a great improvement. It made all of our paperwork, so much of our paperwork, much more consolidated.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that happened along the same timeline as design tools, or a little after that. So
well, and now that you could move, I can't believe I just discovered, I think somebody asked me this yesterday, and I was like, oh no, you can't. And so, well, the greatest thing in here is we could move everything because it doesn't matter. Where I do this in real data files, then I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. But this has been a long request, right? So we've received a request, I would say, for as long as probably images and attachments has been around, to be able to move in this sub folder or sub module. So that's definitely really great. The other thing, and I know I've said this before over the years, but just because we're in here, if you're not utilizing your user ID and password under your vendor, definitely implement that, because that'll make hopefully everybody at the firm's life easier as you go along. Something else, well, let's actually go back into items. So if you're in your item screen, so if you're in 19th Street and you're a designer and you're looking around and you're like, shoot, I don't remember how much 19th Street has paid me to date. You don't need to get out of this window or this screen or this module. You can actually just click on 19th Street and go to codes and see, oh my gosh, I could see that they have $732,000 in proposal deposits. I'm sorry, in funds available, 75,000 in proposal deposits. Oh, I'm working on this really large proposal. I know I have enough money. You don't need to go into accounting and money in to see the same data. Also, remember, your designers can see the screen. I like that feature. I do. We push the teams to be autonomous, right? So somebody should be looking to answer that question before coming to accounting. So if they ask, well, how much do they have in funds available? This is how I would show them to find the information independently, right? Because they're not necessarily going to have access to this screen. And here's the same information, but they do have access to, I mean, I guess you could, in theory, toggle it off, but they would have access to addresses. And so this is where they could see, that information. It's now the end of the year, right? Favorite time. Staying on the client deposit conversation. Well, I'm glad somebody loves it too, because somebody just wrote that they love that feature. I love that feature, but I will say, I think it's not necessarily, that's not a consensus across the board, where there are firms who don't want the designers to be able to see it. They're not always transparent in terms of budgets and total spend, et cetera. So I think that this screen makes it clear. Does this mean the designer will be able to quickly see profit? I would say no. Is this an indicator? Yes. So there's definitely conflicted opinion about that. If you go into reports, just because again, we're talking about client deposits, and go to legacy. So legacy and financial are very, very similar. Legacy is the old presentation. So again, this is just typically how I navigate. And so if you go into client deposit, this is the time of year that you should be looking at this report, let's say monthly or quarterly, but this is the time of year where this is, I would say, especially critical. So we just saw that 19th Street had a whole bunch of money living in funds available. And so it's November, it's almost December, and I want to check in on my client deposit. Easiest way to do it, reports client deposit. And what does this report show us? Well, shows us a lot of different information and a lot of different information in summary. But at the top, it has 5 columns. The first column is always telling you how much a client has paid you to date. So Mr. and Mrs. Tom Hanks right here at 19th Street, they're my personal test client. They've paid us almost $1.2 million. Out of that $1.2 million, it's then bucketed into these 3 columns. These 3 columns. This then is a subtotal of this and this, and I'll tell you why. So here's our 1.2. The 1.2 million thus far to date, as of today, has been applied 75,000 to proposals, 332,000 to invoices, and 732,000 to funds available. So this is how much they have left to spend. Client deposit, that's the number that lives on your balance sheet. This is actually a great double check in terms of, are my subledgers in balance? They're not in our test database, and again, I'll show you. But the client deposit is totaling this number and this number, because this number and this number give you the amount of dollars in work in progress, meaning those dollars are not finished, they're not complete. Maybe they're on retainer, maybe a part of this is retainer, maybe a part of this is used for FF&E. I think a common question is, can you split up funds available into retainer and, for example, like client deposit or funds to be used for items? The answer to that at the moment is no. You can manage it though by using a unique check ID when you post money in and out of funds available. So you can do it, and depending on your contract I would say dictate how you treat those funds. If you go to your balance sheet, and I always exclude zeros. I'm waiting for that feature, Anthony. I'm waiting. Turn 0 off permanently.
Still working on it.
I know. I mean, it's got to be an easy toggle. So I pulled my balance sheet quickly because again, end of the year, I'm just checking in to see, well, I didn't close everything out yet, but I'm starting to. This balance sheet in our test database is wild, and it's actually sometimes super fun to look at. But client deposit is on here. And so what does this client deposit mean? So this client deposit is a total. It doesn't match, so that's a problem. But pretend that it does. Look, this and this. This means I have a problem in my subledger. What is it? I can't answer that. I need to go spend maybe half a day, maybe an hour, but I actually know what is causing the problem. It's an old time problem. We've looked at it at every year end for the last couple of years. They should match. And this number here on your balance sheet, remember, is a total of our funds available bucket and our dollars in work in progress. Because from an IRS standpoint, all of this, right, is technically work in progress, right? It's client deposit. It's not revenue. It's future revenue at some point in time. Again, we don't match. That's a problem for January. Somebody asked, when a project is closed out, should the proposal deposits be zero? Yes, that's actually a great question. Yes. And so I don't know if we've done it. Maybe we should. Actually, I don't know if we've done it, Anthony, but doing an entire webinar on how to close out a project. I know for myself, I have a very specific task list of what I look at and how I close out a project. And so, but that is a great question. Yes, when you're ready to close out a project. So let's say, oh, funny. So Hannah works for Studio. So Hannah didn't really do a lot with us. But her proposal deposits are zero. So she has funds available though. So she's not a good example. Oh, let's go to this one. So AV Los Angeles, they sent us $7,600. They have $39.60 in proposal deposits and $36.40 in invoices. They don't have anything in funds available, so that's good. But we can't close this out until this $39.60 is actually is invoiced. Because that $39.60 has not been recognized as revenue and won't fall off of our balance sheet until we invoice it. So this is the best place to start. From here, I mean, you could find the next set of data points in a number of different ways. So go to projects, go to items. AV Los Angeles sounds like a vendor. Let's see what's in there. And then there's some helpful ways to find, okay, oh, AV main client, interesting. So I'm in AV Los Angeles. When I'm trying to understand what's been invoiced, what's not been invoiced, especially when I know that there's money in proposal deposits. When I go to my item screen, I change my view to item list because I can then utilize these column headers to toggle. So I throw everything not on a proposal, not on an invoice to the bottom. I don't want to see it, right? It's been invoiced. I'm assuming it's clean. I'm assuming my project worksheet's in a really good place. Then I turn item details back on, and then I look to see, oh, okay, what's been paid? Why is there dollars tied to work in progress? This is a question. It has an order, but it doesn't have a payment, but it shouldn't have an order. But here, oh, this doesn't have a payment on it. This doesn't have a payment on it. Oh, that's invoiced. That's not invoiced. That is a vendor payment. Actually, this entire project worksheet. Oh, here it is. Here's our $39.60. So, and this is probably a good and a bad example. It's partially paid. So if you invoice it, you'll have to collect the balance. But let's say you invoice it. If I then go back to my client deposit for AV Los Angeles. Oh, actually it's zero because it fell off of the report. So here's my old one. And I toggled everything to not show me zeros. So this went away. But actually this 7,600 should still be there. And I don't think I see it. AV Los Angeles, let's turn include zero, yes. That one may be miles long. AV Los Angeles, so 7,600 now up here in funds received, but proposal deposits, funds available, and client deposit are zero. So if everything else on that project was clean, but I could tell you right now it's not, you would be able to close it out. A follow-up question, I think still on client deposits is, well, what happens if I have a negative client deposit, proposal deposit? Well, that's a great question. I would say probably not a clear answer. So what that means is that you may have voided an item with a payment on it. That's why your proposal deposits are negative. If your funds available are negative, you may have over applied funds available. A great place to start to try to unravel that would be even to pull up your payment application report. I would go to payment application by date. An old report, but a great one. Go to AV Los Angeles. And this is where you really are going to have to sit and do some research to say, okay, I see that I received money on this date. I see that I applied it here and here. Okay. I see that I received more money. Oh my golly, 7 months later. This I received and applied directly to an invoice. Then I applied again from funds available. Then I took out of funds available. Oh, then I went back into funds available, then I received a check, but I'm not good at using check numbers. So unfortunately, it really isn't straightforward, right? The system doesn't protect you from having a negative proposal deposit or a negative funds available deposit. There are times where you really may do that. So I did that actually last Friday. I was applying $90,000 of money from a firm's client, but they paid it in 4 different checks because they had a limit to how much they could process, which if you knew the client's client, it sounded bizarre, but they had a limit. So it was a lot easier for me to go into money in, and I just went into this screen and I made all of these. So I was applying money, but this number was negative. It was negative 90 grand because I wanted to make sure I applied the money in the way it was communicated to the client through the client total balance report. And then I went in and offset my negative funds available with actual deposits made into cash. So the system, again, it doesn't warn you, but hopefully if you pull up a payment application, or if you, well, I would start with a payment application, but that should at least alert you as to what may have happened to cause the problem. Okay, so let's go out of here. Oh, we invoiced this, right? We cleared that up. So actually, if we stay on the topic of, well, what do we do with AV Los Angeles? So go actually back to your reports. So go to your favorite, well, go to my favorite 2010 report. And so we're cleaning up our client deposit and we said, okay, this project is done. I forgot to invoice. They're going to pay me. I'm going to mail them this invoice. They're going to send me a payment. But what else do I need to do on this particular project to close it out? So it looks like, so this is open, this is open. This is open. Oh, maybe I could, if you're closing out a project and you see that you have orders that haven't been paid, that's a question that triggers a question in terms of why do I have open work in progress? So remember, work in progress, I think, can be a confusing term. The way Studio treats work in progress. So if you go to all reports and go to work in progress, and you go to client, work in progress is any item on a order that hasn't been invoiced. But what the system isn't going to tell you that you need to decipher is this actually a real order? Did you order it? And is there a payment due? Meaning perhaps the cost of the order is incorrect, and therefore the purchase cost needs to change. But even if your order is 0, and I don't think we saw it on this particular project, but if you have an order number, no. If you have an order that the whole purchase column is 0, it doesn't matter. That purchase order, as long as there's a purchase order linked to it, it still lives in this screen. So you would go in and you'd have to void it before you close out your project. So again, great time of the year to start looking at those types of things. This isn't my normal test, but my normal test client that I play around in. But if you notice, right, it looks like nothing's ever happening, or nothing's happening with this. It's here. Maybe it was a placeholder. You know what? The client was going to go forward with it, but they decided not to. I changed my search terms here because as soon as I go in to void my order, the item will go away. because it's not relevant to the search criteria. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to avoid because I don't want it to be on work in progress. I think it's voiding. Yep. And then I'm also going to go in and oh, Anthony, do you see?
What? Oh, the new, yeah.
The new, so, but wait, did it just update in the middle of it? So there's a new item screen coming. It's coming out shortly. I know all of us at studio are super excited about it. I've been telling clients, I'm like, don't worry, there won't be a learning curve.
Yeah, very slightly. It's like 80% like design, like the look of it or the design of it, and like 20% like improvement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, functionality maybe, right? Maybe that's a good.
Yeah, 20% functionality, but everything's still there. It's just arranged differently and more efficiently, in my opinion. Easy to get to, easier to access, and for better visibility. But I will be doing a webinar, I believe, after the release in December, if I'm not mistaken about it. So
Oh, tell me first. So
I
I could,
will.
so I could join. I thought, it's funny that this just happened, but I thought we were putting tags into the items, into the new item screen. Do you know if that's?
That should be coming. I'm not, I think that might be coming with the release of the items refresh, if I'm not mistaken. Don't
Okay.
hold me to that, but I believe that's what's going to happen.
Well, I feel like I was told that as well, and then the last time the database got an upgrade, I couldn't find them, and so I just didn't know if I had confused that on my end. But I'm really excited about that, and I actually think the designers will be super excited about that because it'll work very similar, or at least how I've been explaining it is to how Pinterest works with tags.
Yeah, me too. And I think I'll have to go in and look, but I think the tags are only available right now for inspirations and design tools. But
Yes, that is correct.
yeah, that was such a big hit when we released design tools
Yes.
that people wanted it for regular items. So that's what we're giving them.
I think no, I think it'll be a really great feature.
I hope Keith
I'm
doesn't
super
get mad
excited
at me
about it.
for spilling the beans too early.
I know, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm
It's all
telling you,
good.
I've been telling clients, so maybe
Okay, good.
they could get mad at me. Um, I wanted to walk through the steps of, this is a common question, right? Oh, the client, and so we voided this PO. Why did we void the PO? Well, we voided the PO because the client's not moving forward with it. Remember, a PO in Studio creates work in progress. Whether you want it to or not, it's funny, I think I try to explain that a lot, where you may not realize it's doing that, but it's doing that because you're really telling the system, we're waiting on this order. It is literally work in progress. So if you decide not to move forward with the order, you can't just go in and make the item inactive. Let me rephrase that. You can, but that's not helpful. You need to void your order to negate it out of the work in progress screen and report. Not screen, just report. So we did that here because we're cleaning up AV Los Angeles and we're like, shoot, we didn't move forward with this. Okay, fine. I voided the order. What's next steps? Really best practice next steps is to take the item off the proposal. This is not, though, a absolute. This is more of a company preference because we have several firms who like this view here. So projects and proposals, and they utilize this view to understand what's outstanding in terms of money and cash flow coming in. I would say mathematically, this shouldn't be your like your go-to, but I think a lot of principals, because it's easy and easier than reports, this is their go-to. So in a firm where we know a principal especially is going into this screen, I highly recommend you void your proposal before you make the item inactive. But just remember, you don't have to. That is another step. Great question. Does an invoice equate to work in progress? So no, actually an invoice closes the work in progress loophole or loop. So let's talk about the item life cycle. So right, an item goes in. So this is an item. Now we just negated the item life cycle, but let's pretend this fabric for a chair goes into Studio. What do we do next with it? Next, we put this item on a proposal. We actually won't do that because we just took it off of a proposal, but we put it on a proposal. When you put an item into Studio, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't create anything. It doesn't generate work in progress. It's just a spec. It just lives here. When you add an item to a proposal, same thing. Actually, nothing happens. There's no entries. There's no GL entries whatsoever. As soon as a client pays the proposal, let's see what reports we have open. This bucket starts to fill up, this proposal deposit bucket. So it fills up, it fills up, it fills up. So great. Then you, as a designer, say, okay, well, now it's time to order all of these items that they've paid for. As soon as you select the item and you put it on an order, that's when this work in progress is generated. Work in progress is any item on an order, not on an invoice. Remember, the system is not, and so look, we just negated that order, right? The work in progress went away because there's nothing in progress. The studio is saying to you, oh, it's not here. We're not working on it. When you, the client paid, we issued an order, we paid for the order. All of that, both the proposal and the order and the payments of the proposal and the order, they're living in vendor and client deposit. As soon as you invoice, it actually, I don't want to say negates it, but it closes it. It moves everything from client deposit and vendor deposit to accounts receivable and revenue, accounts payable and cost of goods sold. So that's the life cycle. Yes, work in progress. I would say as future revenue, yes, but work in progress, especially in the way Studio looks at it, is actually only on the vendor side. So your work in progress is generated by your order. So you could have money on a proposal, but you forgot to generate the order. Work in progress will not be generated. This report will have nothing on it. So again, the way Studio looks at work in progress, I think it could be a little bit different. We utilize the work in progress report as a secondary tool. It is not my first client management tool. And that again is just personal preference. So now I went in, I took this item off of the proposal because this particular principal likes to go into the proposal screen. And I then go and I make this item inactive because I don't want it in my screen anymore. I know they're not going to move forward with it. Well, maybe I'll need the spec of this fabric at some point in time, but I put it in here already, so I'll just keep it in there. So I made it inactive. It falls off here, even though the search box is saying fabric for chair. But remember, you could always toggle your inactive items on. And also remember, in your reports, you could do the same thing. So it automatically only displays active, but you can always still find your inactives. So what I did was I went to filters, and then I'm going to toggle inactive on, active off. I know it's here, so let's there we go. So and here it is. And if I make it active again, I have to toggle this inactive off or active on. I don't know. Fabric for what was this called? Fabric for chair. And here it is again. Does it not like my space? Sometimes it doesn't like my spaces. So, and here's my fabric for chair. Somebody's asking a question. So we use invoices to get a client to pay for the piece, and a PO is to place the order for the vendor. Is this incorrect? So, great question. I don't want to say necessarily right or wrong. I would say it's not the way that Studio is designated to work, operate, or manage the workflow. Right, so we're in an industry where you notoriously have a lot of price changes. You have a lot of goods in transit. You have long lead times. So an item is really meant to, for product specifically, we're not talking about time billing. Time billing is an entirely separate module. But for product specifically, that item is meant to go on an order, on a proposal. That's what it's meant to do. It's meant to, is it thinking? You are meant to utilize proposals as a way to collect money in the system. That is the functionality of the software. It wants you to put money on proposals, and it wants those proposals to stay open, meaning not invoiced, for a period of time. How long? That is a debatable discussion. Until installation, until the receiver has it, until there's another life triggering event. But you are meant to. So this isn't a QuickBooks, right? Where, oh, it didn't go on the proposal. We're going to put it back on a proposal. In QuickBooks, right, you can't put money on estimates. But one of the biggest differentials of a QuickBooks and a studio is not only a studio item based, but we are encouraging you to utilize the proposal function, to utilize this deposit request function, I would say obviously applying payment to the proposal, and that begins to trigger the entire life cycle of that item. So if you go back into your, actually the screen that I usually tell people not to focus on, if you go back into your proposal screen, this can be an indicator for firms to say, oh, I know proposal 10533 is out for approval. I know I'm going to get $141,000 in the bank. That doesn't mean my $141,000 in the bank is all profit, but it does mean that from a cash flow perspective, it's money coming in. So workflow really is item first, proposal second, order payment. I actually missed proposal payment. You're never supposed to place an order without client payment, right? That's a really good rule of thumb. And I'm in my non-typical test client 19th Street who has a bunch of money in client deposits, so it's the easiest way to demonstrate. But then write an order, then the order is paid, and then you begin to track the order once the goods are installed or about to be installed. That's when you would invoice and complete the life cycle. Would you transfer a proposal to an invoice once the item is at the receiver or at the client's home? I would say also great question, but a non-black and white answer. So who holds the contract with your receiver? Do you hold the contract or does the client hold the contract? Who pays the receiver? Do you or does the client? Who carries the additional insurance for the receiver? Do you or does the client? So invoicing is change of ownership, right? But when does change of ownership occur? I mean, it can occur at different points, at different points in time for different firms. I love assigning a color to an installed item. So you can, again, now this is a outdated feature, but meaning it's not a new feature anymore. It's an amazing feature though. So if you go to settings and priorities, you can now rename your colors as to how you want them to be used. And this is new within the last couple of years, and it really has been amazing for firms. So if you're not doing this, stop what you're doing and talk about item priorities within the office to discuss, well, how can you utilize them effectively? So paid with Visa 4561 is not an effective use of a color. We need to add history to colors, Anthony. That would be great.
Well, I was gonna interrupt you and say
yeah.
I feel like the Edward Snowden of studio designer today, but we are actually releasing more colors to edit and use for your purposes. I think there's going to be a total of maybe like 12 or more, one of the two. I can't remember exactly the number, but more colors are coming very shortly.
Do you know how many times people ask me that?
A lot, I can imagine. That's why I decided to mention it.
So that's funny. Yes, all the time, 3 times a week, maybe 5 times a week. And I actually always tell them, I'm like, listen, you need to be grateful for the 10 colors that you have because we used to have 3 and you used to not be able to name them. So you would have a cheat sheet for what purple meant. So we're like way ahead, which is not a great answer, but it just makes me laugh all the time. I'm like, we have 10 colors.
Yeah, I think it's actually going to be double if I'm not mistaken. It's like 2 like a shade darker and a shade lighter of one color, and so like there's like solid distinction, and then there's going to be a more variety of what to choose from. So yeah, I think it's going to be at least double, so probably about 20 different colors in total, I think.
I should send a mass email to our clients because I'm telling you 70% of them ask all the time.
All right, well, if you want to be wiki links, then go for it.
Yeah, well, I also would like to make a personal request of getting rid of brown.
You know what? I don't blame you on that one.
And sometimes people are like clients want to assign accounting brown, and I'm like, no, I'm so sorry, I refuse. I do not want brown.
Back order's kind of a genius tag for that one, to be honest. But yeah, no, I'll see what I can do.
It's so that's just me being silly, but no, I don't like accounting to be brown.
It's very drab.
Yes, right? Come on, I want to be purple. But colors are great. So if you're not currently utilizing this feature, this is just absolutely a must in offices. Again, a follow-up question is, well, how do people use them? I mean, people are honestly, studios are using them in a variety of different ways. I always say you need consistency and you need to utilize the colors in a helpful way to the office, but not in a redundant way and not in a way that replaces your procurement codes. So the procurement codes go hand in hand with colors. So if you are a firm that uses expediting, right? Your expediting report should have priority colors as a column, but the priority color again isn't necessarily used to replace one of the codes in here. So proposal approval is a big one. PO approval, right? Like who approves those in your office? That there's no place for that in codes here. And so that's a great use of a color. Red actually, so it says attention, is a really easy way to identify any type of problem. So call it attention, call it problem. I went to college during 9/11. So code red was a very real thing. That way it's very clear to everybody how they utilize the colors. So again, having double or even just a handful more, I think is incredible. That's a common request for clients for sure. And anything, so remember too, in your item screen, for the most part, anything in your item screen could filter to any item report. So depending on how you decide as a firm to utilize colors, this is just a really great internal communication tool. Using a color for installed, I would say, is helpful for whoever at the firm is invoicing, whether that's one person or 10 people, but hopefully you have a process for that. And actually somebody's asking, what is the purpose of invoicing? If the item was paid for during the proposal. So remember, studio is accrual. So it's accrual only. There's no cash option, which is correct, which is amazing. We're in an industry that should be accrual. Hopefully you're accrual on your tax returns. If you're not, definitely inquire as to why. And so because we're accrual, we need this invoicing button or feature or toggle. We need to invoice the item to recognize revenue and cost of goods. If we don't, if we go back to this report too, but if we go back to our client deposit, anything living in this bucket and this bucket, which in turn totals this bucket, is not revenue. It's just living there as client deposit. And then on the flip side, on this item, and I don't know what this item is to, it's to a test client, but the vendor payment related to this item is also living in vendor deposit, and it's also not in cost of goods. So invoicing is the final step in studio. Do you need to send an invoice to a client? No, you don't. It could be internal. It could be an internal tool. It can be an internal function of accounting. It could be an internal function of the design studio, but you absolutely need to invoice in studio to complete that life cycle. Did the gray striped color go away in the last update? We've noticed there's no longer populating for us. It's now just white. Oh, that's actually a really good question.
Yeah, I just answered that one. It's part of the new color scheme that we're working on. I don't think it was supposed to take it away, so we're either going to be selecting having a similar alternative to the gray stripe, or the gray stripe is coming back. I'm working on confirming that this week. So,
oh, great question. Anthony asked how to sign up for the newsletter. I don't know how to answer that.
I got it.
Okay, perfect. We're at the top of the hour. I would say we covered some information, always so much more. Let me know if you have any sort of last minute questions, whether they're tips and tricks or whether they're more on the financial based. We did try to tie sort of those two worlds together. Oh, somebody else wants to get on the newsletter too.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I've already written down the names. I'll make sure that I get with our customer operations team to ensure that that you all are on the list, because you should.
Okay, so I keep going. How do we watch the recording? Oh, Anthony, these questions are for you.
I love it. I don't get this much attention, but this is actually feeding my ego this morning. Yes, so the recordings will be out by the end of today, early tomorrow morning at the latest. So as soon as this gets done processing, I send it over to a customer ops team. They send out an email that goes out to everyone who registered, whether you were able to attend or not. So you'll get a link of this. This also gets uploaded to our Learning Hub and our Help Center. So if you go to the Learning Hub at all and view our past webinars, this will be most likely uploaded by the end of the day for you, but you'll have a link in that email too, directly to it. So
I love it when they ask when you're asked questions. Um, is there a series of reports you would look at for end of the year? The answer to that is yes. There are a tremendous amount. I've done a lot of year-end webinars. I know there's some scheduled, I think, through end of the year, Anthony, in terms of like how to close out the year. If
oh
you
yeah.
go into the Learning Hub and go to how to close out the year or closing out the year, yes, there's a lot of reports, and it really makes sense to spend an entire hour on them instead of trying to rush through them. So definitely start there. And there are a few more, again, through December of this year.
Yeah, there's actually a page that is in our knowledge base. So if you go to the Help Center and type in live training, it has everything that we have scheduled so far with a link to the registration page. And so you can just click on the registration link like you did with this one and register for any of the upcoming webinars. It's got everything scheduled up through January, I believe, right now.
Okay, somebody said that they don't typically get a recording. But I mean, it is always available in the Learning Hub. I don't know if there's a recording that's sent.
Yeah, we send it every single webinar, we send it out to the registration list. So I will double check because that's kind of my area when I send over the list that Zoom records. But I have a list of everybody in this QA session, so I can go back and make sure you get the newsletter and you also get the follow-up recording of the webinar.
So there's a few more questions. Is there ever a charge when using the Learning Center? No, there's not. I even know that. I mean, sorry, Anthony. I mean, I even know that.
I love that you answered that for me. So you do need to create a separate account, but it is free. It's part of Studio. It's just where we manage all of our knowledge base stuff is in kind of a separate component of Studio. So you can use your same Studio Designer credentials. You just have to register an account and create it and whatnot. Go through those prompts and then you can access it. But yeah.
Hold on. Next, we have time for a few more because there are a few more. What is the life cycle of a client credit for an item they have paid for but no longer want? Great question. I would say it depends on where that item is. So let's go to 19th Street quickly, because we should have some items that are not invoiced that have money applied to them, but you never know. So in 19th Street, we have items that a client paid for. Maybe. Well, no, we definitely do. But where are they in the life cycle? It's a great question. So let's actually just put this custom sectional on a proposal, because again, I have a lot of money in funds, client funds available, so it's really easy. So I put this on a presentation. I used actually design tools and PowerPoint, and it was great, and they loved it. It obviously has such a great picture that it was enticing for them. They approved it, and we sent it to them, and they're going to pay. So I'm throwing this, and look, there's a custom sectional in the bar. I guess that could happen. Let's put that up there. So they're going to pay for it. So accounting, money in, they have money and funds available. So again, it's easy. So in my proposal screen, here's my custom sectional. So in this example, when I go to CDP 11/20/2024, watch this screen here, because this is the same as your client deposit screen, but this is just individual. So watch what happens. So my 732 changes and my 75,000 changes. And so 17,000 comes out of 732,000 and goes into 75 post. So this becomes 92,000. But remember, on your client deposit screen section report, this number and this number are combined. So in terms of where is that item or those dollars in the life cycle, as long as it hasn't been invoiced, it's still within client deposit. So if they change their mind and you haven't invoiced it, go back in. They paid for it, and then tomorrow comes around and they emailed you and they said, oh my goodness, where did this item go? Oh my goodness, I changed my mind. And you say, okay, no problem. You go and you take off the money. When you take off the money, remember, this whole thing has been living in client deposit anyway. I don't know, I feel like I'm missing a number, 11. Oh, I am, because it's confusing. Today's the 20th and it's 2024. So I now reverse it, and so my 92 goes back to 75, and my funds available go back to 732. So that's the easy answer when it is still living in client deposit. It would be a different answer if it was invoiced. But that's a great question to be covered, I think, at another point in time. What report do I use to see if a paid item was removed for a proposal? Oh, that's a great question. And actually, I think relatively easy to answer. So this 2010 report is amazing. Honestly, it's the most amazing and the most versatile report. But you could utilize filters on here in a number of different ways. You could tell the system to say, oh, well, show me any item that's not on a proposal. So proposal is blank, but my client payment is not blank. So my client payment is not blank, and my proposal is blank. Do I have any items like that? And look, I do. There was a bowl. No, it's part of inventory, but it looks like this was taken off of a proposal. Maybe it was never on there, but in our example, why? I don't know why, but it has payment attached to it, and it was removed from the proposal. So this report would catch that for you. There's time billing on here as well. You could exclude the room, etc. But again, this is a really good place to start. Where do I find sales tax code setups? In California, we have some time billing hours that are subject to sales tax. Okay, last question of the day. Sales tax location. So settings, and go to tax locations. Open that up. Yes, California is subject to the counties. So I would recommend, right, you set up by county, and then even further, right, when you're in the California site, it asks you by jurisdiction as well, right? So depending on, are you in the city, are you not in the city? So if we go to Beverly Hills, every single sales tax location has a tax percentage associated to items, and then also a time tax percentage. So for example, in New York, and California, well, California is probably more gray. In New York, the 5 boroughs, the time tax rate is a different percentage than this rate. So this becomes it's not 4.75, but it's like 4.675. If I set my time tax percentage in here, and then Beverly Hills is set on my client section, in my client preferences, when I go to time tax, it'll tax it at this rate and not at this rate. So Florida, for example, has a tax percentage 1 and 2. So you should be utilizing tax percent 1 and 2 if you're working in any of the counties in Florida. So I think that's just one piece of it. Sales tax is usually, that could be a whole hour in and of itself. To remove items that are inventory from WIP, would I need to void the PO? The answer to that is yes, but also just make sure that you haven't received the items yet, right? Because you wouldn't be, think about order of operations, right? You wouldn't be able to void the order for the inventory if they were already received in your showroom. So I think about that one.
I did want to take one that
Oh,
make
sorry.
sure that we mentioned. So I don't see it on your screen, Julia, but there is a year-end checklist. So the question really is there a rapid fire series of reports you wouldn't look at for year-end, for end of year housekeeping? So there's a checklist. It's right up by the little stopwatch up at the top, and it says end of year checklist up in that top banner normally. I'm not sure which test account you're in, but it should appear at all of the designers. Yeah, right up by that stopwatch. Right. Yeah, to the left of it. It should appear right there, and it'll say in orange year end.
Oh. Well, hold on, let's go to it. Oh, I don't know. That's a great.
In fact, you know what I'll do? We might go a little over, but I'll share my
Yeah,
screen.
I'll stop sharing.
I'll pull it over here.
Oh, in the inventory example, how do you unreceive it? I mean, you would have to go into your receive tab. I know we sort of moved quickly through that one. You would have to be in inventory when you're in the inventory module, and there's that receive tab at the top. go to that receive tab and then, or you could actually, no, you'd have to adjust it out. Sorry, you'd have to go into your adjust out tab, which should be password protected, Anthony.
Definitely. So yeah, so here it is right here, year-end checklist. You can click
Oh,
general year-end checklist, accounting year-end checklist. So it just kind of walks you through some points of review, things that you need to look at, things like that. So that might help with, you know, deciphering what reports you want to use, don't want to use, what you want to look at. So that is available to everybody now.
oh, that's great.
Definitely. And it's kind of silly because I was going to share my screen anyway to wrap this webinar up. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to email Julia at newagefinancialconsulting.com. Her phone number and her website are on the screen as well. Should you need any support from Studio Designer, please, by all means, reach out to my team in support, and we would be happy to either take your chat inquiry if you need additional help, if our chat assistant can't help you, or email help@studiodesigner.com, and we'd be able to get to your inquiry. Other than that, thank you for joining us today. We hope you have a lovely rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again, Julia.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony, as always.